A lifetime of hard work, children laughing in the kitchen, family photos on a restaurant wall, a legacy that lives on. It all comes from the power of a conversation, like the one Tommy Hall had with First Horizon Bank about taking over his father's Charleston-based restaurant business. Now the table is set for a whole new generation. First Horizon Bank. Let's find a way. Go to firsthorizon.com/Tommy. First Horizon Bank, member FDIC.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, everybody out there, welcoming to this incredibly special show. We have Elsa Dillon calling all the way in, calling all the way in from Australia, as well as we have Dave Zed hanging out in studio, partner right by my side here, riding side saddle with us. So super pumped about this. Elsa, Dave and I were talking the other night. He's absolutely blowing my mind. As y'all can imagine in the audience, Dave Zed and I hanging out for an evening as he's staying a couple of days at our home. The conversations have been incredible. And so we were speaking the other night, and some of the things he was speaking about just blew my mind in the way that just made me say, you have got to talk to Elsa. And so here we are. And Elsa was available while Dave's in town. So here we are. We're super pumped about it. So Elsa, welcome. The only one really that needs to be introduced here, I suppose, because Elsa's been on the show a couple of times, is Dave. So Dave, if you don't mind, for the audience not too familiar with you, let us know who you are, brother.
Sure. Thank you so much. Well, my name's Dave Zed, real name Dave Rossi. The purpose of the Zed or alias is to try and create a benevolent ripple effect, particularly for the Generation Z or Z, youth, younger generation. Basically, I have a podcast called the Generation Z podcast on YouTube, Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and as of right now as well, I've last 2 years of my life took an interesting turn in which I began to get very interested in physics, engineering, and various other forms of such, and have since, in the most humble way possible, have gotten the attention of certain high-level individuals that I had then presented for in person and otherwise, and then afterwards, slowly from there, built a plethora of inventions that were then later patented and things like that. And since then, I've been trying to do my best to essentially lead people down the appropriate ways, doorways, if you will, to attaining this, for lack of a better term, secret sauce energetically in a physical regard. But I think that the physical aspect of things means absolutely nothing without the non-physical or immaterial, if for lack of a better definition. So I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for allowing me to introduce myself. Although in fairness, your members have seen our joint stuff before. So I'll just leave it at that. And I'm very appreciative to speak with you today, Elsa.
This is so great.
It's going to be fun.
Yes, it already is so great. Okay, so what we were talking about, Elsa, and I want to just bring you in on this. So this morning we were talking about, who's the picture that you showed me of the person with the face? And it looked like a shape-shifting reptilian sort of a thing. The puffy face.
Oh, that was, oh my gosh. What was her name? Maria Shriver?
Maria Shriver.
Schwarzenegger's ex-wife.
Yes. So we were seeing a picture of her this morning. Okay. And it was under the subtitle and auspice of sort of like lizard turd shapeshifter, sort of a headline. You know what I mean? But immediately I go, oh, no, I recognize that actually. That's Botox injections, because then it makes them look prettier and more youthful and tight skin, all these things. But then we were talking about something, and this is where it led me to want to ask you about this. Predictively, let's say that the veil is thinning here, and that our ability to perceive, our ability to hold a greater awareness, and our ability to see the things around us is dialed to 11 right now, is what I feel like. And so with the slips, I guess, in, let's say that there's some sort of technology or some sort of biofunction that enables them to be perceived by us differently, like a shapeshifter sort of a thing, then perhaps as this breaks down, they sort of glorify things like Botox, as then everyone's walking around with these injection site marks on their face that has these swelling reactions to it. And then it's super normal for people to want to look like that. But maybe this is the question, Elsa. Do you think that that's like a revealing of the veil, and then they alchemize it to make it, they apprehend the idea to make it more palatable for the public? And so then all the public wants to do it. So then, yeah, mom just looks like that because everybody else looks like that. And it's got to do with sort of a manipulation of the physical features.
If I may say very quickly, Elsa, the idea of redirecting intent away from some things that may be vastly different than what we've been told publicly is the case.
Yeah, like what do they call it? Predictive programming type of a thing.
Well, it's my field. That's what we were around, is all those people.
Exactly.
Right.
We turn up and they don't look like that at all. At all. I remember dropping Richard at the airport and he was going to shoot a James Bond model, literally a James Bond actress. And he was going, I don't know, South Africa or somewhere. And I got to the airport and I had dropped him off very early. All the crew's there and they all, they're in their crew gear because they're catching a flight. I could not pick who the celebrity was. Can't pick him.
Right.
I thought his second assistant was the model celebrity. No. It's so they bring us in, the groomers, the beautifiers, the coaches. They coached all the way through. So everyone you see on any paid television has been groomed in some way or another.
Would you say, Elsa, that this grooming is, for lack of a better description, in some cases fractalized in a ripple effect, in the sense that even some of the individuals themselves don't realize they're a layer that is, I guess you could say, quote unquote, protecting another layer beneath that, and so on and so forth?
This one is interesting because you always wonder how deep the layers are.
Right.
And I hear interviews and people's voices, and it comes across as a judgment. It's not a judgment. It's just where do I place myself in the situation? That's all this is. So I just come in, listen to someone's frequency, and then go from there. And through the frequency, you can tell if it's got the Matrix. You feel a shudder or a niggle. I call them niggles to the kids. Did you hear the niggle in their voice? They'll say a word and their voice quivers, or it's the way they say a certain word, and it's the clue. I say, that's the gift, and my kids are like, well, no, that didn't sound very nice. And I say, well, it's a clue because they've just told you what they're carrying.
Right.
That the programs they're carrying, the viruses or parasites they're carrying, and the human part or the will is still there. It's always there. The breath of life is always there within them. It's just how layered is it inside with other stuff. That's all. Right. So when I hear someone's frequency and they're speaking, you can feel how much goop is. So they're speaking, they probably are speaking their truth from that point. But if we took off all the goop and gave them a bit of a cleanse and sat them beside some trees, their story might start to change. And we notice this with a lot. I notice it in our own family members as well. This is not just applied to celebrities or military or anything like that. This is applied to the storekeeper. And right. What's interesting is last night I was addressing a few people that I had come across through the day. And as I was just debriefing myself, a massive helicopter flew over our house with that person's name in my head. Now, most people will just go, oh, well, that's interesting, or that's a coincidence. It's not. This is how powerful we literally are, but we are so programmed to turn it off. Right. So I'm in an interview and I say sometimes it takes a while for me to call in the children's beings because it's come through their frequency, not mine. So sometimes someone will say, well, what about this being? So I can call them in, but I sometimes have to be patient and wait for their frequency to come through. As I'm saying this, I get a phone call, an ID calling on my phone in the interview. People will say that's a coincidence, but my phone never rings. So
if I may ask, Elsa, what are your thoughts on energetic or as they say here, non-material or quote unquote quantum activities being able to occur through various, if not all, forms of technologies. And I ask this because, from my perspective, if one looks at what's called lattice ion coupling within electron and photon resonances, it certainly seems to substantiate that there's far, far more activity going on in that regard, even if the device that this spirit may be working through or with is not quantum at all. Just the fact that there's electricity there may enable some form of bridge to be established. Does this resonate with you at all?
Yes. When we start to realize how advanced this is, how far ahead it is from where we are right now, that will freak a lot of people out.
Right.
They are definitely tapped in. So I listened to a few of your interviews and got the questions for your answers today. The answers for your questions today.
Wow. Wow. That's incredible. Thank you. That's awesome.
I was also told that I was going to meet you.
Wow.
On another interview, a lady said, I see a lightning mark and your name, and she drew it on a piece of paper, and it's a Z and an ED. That was probably
Elsa Dillon is her initials. Z, lightning bolt ED, Z, lightning bolt Elsa Dillon, so Z.
Whoa, I'm getting goosebumps right now.
Yeah,
wow.
So the meaning of it, the message I got when she told me about it, it was it's hertz, so energy, electricity, ed, so extra dimensional. Some people call me, but it's not. It's not me. It's just my name. So it's just what I'm carrying with me at this point.
And just to clarify, so I understand fully here, forgive me if I don't, but these are messages that you had received, you had channeled, if we could call it that, or?
No, I was in an interview, and this lady just went, I have to tell you, they keep asking me to say lightning ed. So she doesn't even know about it. Yeah, this was 2 or 3 weeks ago, probably. Yeah.
Whoa.
So stops the show.
Yeah.
To tell me. And this happens to me all the time. We have been finding that the more audiences we come across, the more messages I get that I'm coming to people, or my family members come into their dreams and assist them on missions and sometimes the missions they'll say to me are dreams that I've had 10 years ago.
Right.
Well, Dave's got a really cool mission, and I'm sure he has a bunch of questions that you could answer that may aid him in some greater understandings and awarenesses. And I know that to be true, actually. So, Dave, if you will.
Wow, sure. Well, there's so many routes that this can go down. I've been essentially for not just yourself, Elsa, but also for my audience, for Brandon's audience, and for everyone else out there that's watching or listening. I wanted to ask your opinion on this idea that, for example, the Earth itself, particularly what we would call the Schumann resonance, or the inner heartbeat of the planet, is something that is perhaps one could argue a larger macro fractalized version of what we are organically, at least in this material reality, perhaps. The same way that our hearts beat and respond electrically would be akin to that of the heartbeat of the planet.
So she has her own pulse.
Right.
So what's tricky is coming back to the lightning strike, the hertz. The hertz is our pulse as well. So we have our independent pulse. She has her independent pulse. Her pulse works for the size of where she's at and what she's going through.
Right.
I do like calling her a she.
Yes.
I have no idea why. Maybe she is the ship for us too.
Right.
I feel that she's been growing for some time, and this is why we have desert areas, because Earth was, when it was smaller, was covered by water, and she's growing. So as she grows, the land pulls apart, and our kids follow this theory as well, not because I've programmed the kids, they just feel that Earth is continually growing.
Right.
So it's not that we're running out of water, it's just that the lands are shifting. And
right. Well,
yeah.
To that point, I wanted to ask. This may be a little bit of a loaded question, but forgive me if it is. I've recently been exploring the idea with respects to this idea that gravity is, for example, the birth child of electricity and magnetism when the vectors are summed to zero in a practical regard. And if I may elaborate, the idea behind that is essentially very much akin to when a male and female become very intimate, they birth a child. This could be likened to perhaps the electric permittivity of the ether and the magnetic permeability. And that combination of the two becomes something else entirely when certain conditions are met. Would this be something that you would perhaps agree with or disagree with? I'd love to hear your perspective.
Just because you probably don't know our family, so we have 8 children. The 5th one, Ginger, is electrical. So each child has a type of unique essence or gift. We all do, but we've just tapped into what they are. So right. Ginger's electrical. So we have to be wary around her with electrical storms, electricity. If there's a big buzz in the air, she'll be heightened. So you literally can walk past her and get an electric shock. So it's quite interesting what happens with the electricity in the body. We've also come across rocks that hold electricity. So we've come across Balsot rocks in Australia. So they are connected to the magnetics of Earth. So they call these rocks, they say they grow, and they're connected down to the magnetic core of volcanoes. They're hot to touch. So we can be in winter and all the stones around them are cold, but these ones are hot, but we're nowhere near a volcano
right.
These rocks have magnetics in them. They pull in electricity. So all the trees around them are petrified.
Right. Right.
So our kids call them the vortex rock, and they know that they're not allowed near the vortex rocks when a storm's approach. Like if we can hear a storm coming in the hills and they're on horses near that hill, they're like, oh, gotta get away from the vortex rock because we know it calls them in. So electricity is like always trying to find how to get to Earth. Now, that's what we can see.
Right. Right. Yep.
All right. Now let's go to what's just been coming. We were warned by the Indian god that has been coming through. The Indian god, which is Siva, she is of imagination. She brings through, she controls the flow of water, the pools of water, so the flow of imagination. Now, imagination can be taken 2 ways because, like everything, it can create fear and doubt.
Right.
But imagination can give us freedom as well if we choose it, because you will create anything you literally want. This over here is what society has been attempting to stop this over here, because they have no control over where this can go.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, and that brings us back to sort of the predictive programming element we were talking about that sort of initiated this conversation, is the fact that, or what we've observed is an idea, and we've talked about this as well, that they'll sort of put a story out or something will happen ahead of a cataclysm or some sort of event that they have previous awareness or insight of for many mechanisms. And I'd like to discuss that as well, that then they make a story up that people will automatically write off. Oh, we all died because of this pandemic thing. Let's just use a random example that has no relevance to our immediate history at all.
Sure.
Let's just say that a pandemic hits, okay? But what they did is that they knew that something was going to happen to where a certain percentage of the population was going to be either infected with a parasite that's not what they said it was, but more of a parasite type thing, or even extraterrestrial, that a comet or something was coming over, and they knew this, and then it infected and then therefore killed a certain percentage of the population. Well, can't have just a certain percentage of the population just dying like for no reason, right? That you can write for no reason, or something like, again, pulling it out of my ass, COVID. Let's say that you just write something like that when you actually got hit by a motorcycle, or you're skydiving, your parachute didn't die, open, COVID.
Right.
But let's just say, again, shits and gigs. I don't want to inspire anybody out there to create something like that, because it sounds awakening as fuck. But what I would say is that then whenever that process occurs, they can sort of just plant things ahead of time, because they know either a comet or something crazy awesome, or the Schumann resonance, or Gaia's like waking up and shaking.
If I may say very quickly, especially if the idea of time is genuinely non-linear, that it just, the linearity is just our perception of such.
Yeah.
And so if it's non-linear, just so if you were to place certain events on a circle and place, a dot on that circle represents an event, for example, that would be how something could be viewed, for example, outside of this reality. But then when inputted, for lack of a better term, into this reality, that circle then goes from being a circle to then a straight line. Right. And then that is how we perceive the order of things.
It's like in Mario Kart. Right. When I was ahead of my brother on a lap and I would drop a banana, I knew that he would hit that banana because I knew his turn. Right. And I knew the way he took turns with that car. Right. That's how in their head I got psychologically with this video game. So I would drop the banana ahead of time and then keep going, which is just in a loop. But if you stretch it out, it's a long track, you know. Yes. But then the banana would be there and he would hit it, and therefore, boom, predictive programming. I knew it was coming.
So with imagination, if you have knowledge, then now you're working on different platforms.
Right.
So you understood where the banana was, you understood the route, so you could change how you perceived it because you were prepared for it. Now, you have all this sci-fi stuff out there, right? But you say that they're not, like, you're just speaking, both of you, and Dave says linear time, and my whole screen does a glitch thing.
Yeah.
So they're actually in on what we're doing right now. Who are they? How many are there? I don't know, but they are. They're in on it. They just
now, this is a new camera, so that could be something else.
That?
It was messing with this yesterday. Yeah.
I'm
with you.
So you're saying this could be the new camera. I'm saying, there are no randoms. This glitch, this flick is coming through that is a sign. Do you have the knowledge and the understanding to pick up on that? And how fast are you picking up on it? So our kids see the signs because they've known them from a young age, and will go sign. So the signs are telling us a story of the banana track before it's even unfolded. So it gives you insight of future things that are happening. So
my brother would do this. He would watch my screen when I would drive and see where I placed the banana, and then avoid it when he would come around for his screen to pick it up. So he was seeing in the future my car drop it, knew where it was, and therefore could avoid it when he came around.
Wow.
Because it's right there next to each other, right? And this is sort of what's going on with this. You could see everything played out right there. You could kind of see what they're doing. And this is what I mean about the veil getting very thin. It feels like our screen has gotten a lot bigger, and we can see what they're doing so far ahead.
Right. Elsa, have you seen the film by chance Tenet?
No.
Okay. It has to do basically with the idea of this proposal that was put out there, I believe, by John Wheeler and Richard Feynman some decades ago, with this concept of a positron is just an electron moving backwards in time, but from the perspective of the positron, it's moving forward and the rest of the environment is moving backwards. That idea, again, of a perpendicularity, the idea of no one is technically right or wrong per se. It just depends on where you as a sovereign being and as a soul are residing in that particular event, and that how you perceive such.
So last night, before I went to sleep, I asked for assistance with meeting you two today and Sam. And I was explaining that it's okay because what happens in that moment, you'll be evolved enough ready to handle the codes to go to the next stage. So the they keep showing me that it's malleable, like it is like a hive, where like a hive moving through there. So this concept of time is probably one of the biggest ones that will, in our years, find humans hard to dissolve because it's so ingrained.
Right.
Time means absolutely nothing to animals. Nothing.
Right.
Dusk and dawn mean everything.
Right.
But time mean nothing.
Right.
Like if I go out and say, come on, it's time for a walk, my dog doesn't hear time, my dog hears walk.
Right.
If I may say, Elsa, this speaks to a lot of my own private research and the idea of the present generates both the quote unquote future and past. And that, again, to your point, the concept or understanding of time, whether for better or worse, has been so ingrained in us here, at least on the surface, that I actually get frustrated when there's a lack of a better word to use, per se. I can feel and visualize and calculate it differently on paper or when experimenting, of course, but trying to then lay it out verbally becomes an issue. And I think that speaks to also the potential pre-designated setup where this idea of just denoting the most beautiful, but also potentially, I don't want to say complex, but vast concept to one word. It's very, in my opinion, shameful, really.
So to help assist with your answers, I listened to a few of your interviews, and the way they gave me the code was through time. The time. They gave me, but the time didn't come through for me as, oh, that was the time. That came through as the code. So it's not time, it's a code. So now the numbers of time shapeshift in front of me and become codes. And sometimes the codes will relate to numerology, sometimes they'll relate to star signs or the kids' beings or a frequency. Sometimes they'll revert to a Bible verse. And then you've got all the multiple verses of the Bible, different languages of the Bible. Sometimes you'll be like a secret message with other realms.
Right.
But it's so what happens is you have the ones who are at making the decisions above at the moment. There's some decision makers running the show. They're watching, and they watch the way the crowd goes. Then they bring in the crowd pleasers, which you're talking about is the ones that present well. Now, the ones that used to present well don't look so great anymore. I don't know if it's just the way I'm interpreting them, but I see a lot of celebrities and hosts now, and I can't even look at them. There's something missing, or they've lost their magic, or maybe they've lost their show, literally lost their show, because I'm magnetically attracted to someone like yourself or Brandon, and so are my kids. It's not just me, it's the little ones as well. They are looking for people that speak a truth frequency, not a narrative. Because the thing with the narrative is that it might not even be their story they're speaking.
Right.
So it holds no truth.
Right.
It just comes across as a performance.
An artificially finite kind of loop, performance loop.
A groomed performance.
Yeah.
Now these, so I have a fly around me at the moment. He's just flying around. Yeah, so Fly is saying that whatever's happening right now will happen super fast. So the information that we're going to share, because they're survivors, and they bring through it really fast. So I'm not getting annoyed at him, but I am shooing him away. But he's really liking hanging around the microphone, so he likes
where you are.
He likes the buzz too. So I'm saying thank you.
Maybe he's got some ultimate wisdom that he's yelling into the microphone, but he's so small that we can't hear it. And every time he swings around, he's like, "Here's the secret to the universe." We can't really hear him.
Well, flies, the kids go, "Mum, you're not talking to flies again, are you?" And I said, the interesting thing with a fly is how visual they are and their perception of vision, how many realms they can see at once is pretty cool. So
I never thought of that. Oh my God. Thinking of all those little, when you think of an insect's eye, that they're looking in different realms.
If I can make a quick correlation, it's interesting because when you look at whether it's bumblebee hives or flies or whatever it is, there seems to be an induction of what we could call, at least in my line of work, a refractive index, which is what quasi-crystals seem to enable. So basically 4 or more vertices or axis points where light can then be bent. And then you start to have enabling of different, you can call them dimensions, realities, etc. If science fact quickly outstrips science fiction pretty fast.
Dude, and then think of this. Think of Brevinigov's work with the insect wings, okay?
With the chit. I was saying this. Sorry, go.
Okay, cavity structure effect. Yeah, with that stuff, with the whatever wings he was using. And then you have the bumblebees that create that sort of force field with the cavity resonance effect within them as well.
Yes.
And then you have their ability to perceive physically, perhaps like what Elsa's talking about here, different dimensions physically. Like it's that eye sees into the 5th dimension, this one sees into the 64th, and all of those things. Maybe those are all dimensions it can travel into, because if you think of insects, I bet you they're popping in and out of dimensions constantly.
And if I could say very quickly, if people have a difficult time grasping that, not Elsa at all, but I'm saying perhaps for others, I would, this is maybe a poor example, but I would say liken such to the ability to do different things with one thing with one hand and a different thing with the other.
Yeah.
The same way that you can do that, you can just scale that up in the sense of perception or anything of the sort.
Well, dude, when I did DMT, I was very aware that I was in 2 places at once. That was the first time I was absolutely certain I was bilocating, because I was seeing with my third eye the experience of the DMT trip, but I was physically in my body and could hear the music and things going on around me. And depending on which one I wanted to tune into more, but I was absolutely aware of both the whole time.
Right.
So that's what's weird, is perhaps they're creating this cavity structure effect and they're just zipping in and out of dimensions like it's nothing, like they're flying across the street.
To me, it's actually speaks to, perhaps Elsa would agree, in trees. You see the trunk starts as one, and then it branches off into, again, branches, and it starts to fractalize. And then from another branch, it Casimir affects itself into another one. That's your Tesla oscillator, your Egyptian Ankh. That's also your Aronoff-Bohm effect in modern quantum physics. So.
And it's all at a phi ratio.
Yes.
Fibonacci scale ratio. Elsa, we're just going off on you said bug's eyes that could see in different dimensions. And now Dave and I are over here just losing our shit.
Well, a lot of the beings that have come through have insect qualities.
Yes, they do.
The human closest DNA is an ant.
Which is what the Hopi said the ant people saved them.
Yeah, Capelli.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of work with Capelli. So we do a lot of mapping work as well. Mapping helps us. So we do...
Sorry, did you say Capelli?
Capelli.
Capelli? Yeah.
There's something I'd like to bring up after the recording's over. Unfortunately, I can't say it
okay,
while recording.
I'll write it down. We'll remember.
There's a few things that I would like to bring up as well.
Absolutely.
Sometimes the things are a little bit more personal. So, but yeah, Capelli had a feminine partner as well. So we come back to the magnetics on Earth.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The magnetics on Earth, you have 2 feet on the ground. So we're containers of water, and we're heavy, and we draw. So when you see Ginger with electricity and lightning, and you can watch lightning is it's fun. It wants to go down. So when we see now lightning that goes sideways, it's like watching commercial TV now.
It's entertaining.
It's been Botoxed.
If I could just say, Elsa, when you bring up lightning, forgive me for interrupting you, but I have to bring up, when we think of lightning and how it's never straight, lightning strikes, they're always curved. Even if one were to zoom in, a strike may look direct or straight from a distance, but ultimately if we zoom in, it starts to curve. I find that in observations of lightning strikes, the gaps in between one part of the strike to another speaks to Pythagoras' 2-to-1 ratio, in which the gaps that you can draw in between them are a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And that is what it arguably enables the potentials of the ether to then induce quote unquote magical effects.
This holiday season, you might be looking for nutritious, convenient meals to keep you energized on jam-packed days. Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal delivery service, can help you fuel up for brekkie, lunch, or dinner with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. They just drop them at your door, people. You'll save time and eat well. You'll stay on track with your healthy lifestyle while taking all of your holiday to-dos in stride with good meals in the tum-tum. If you're too busy with all this stuff, these meals are easy to get done. They taste great. All you've got to do is head over to factormeals.com/expandingreality50 and use code expandingreality50 to get 50% off. That's code expandingreality50 at factormeals.com/expandingreality50 to get 50% off.
Wow. Wow. So we've seen lightning that is straight. It goes straight down. So
Right.
we again go, okay, well, we know that that's had interference. We've also seen lightning that goes horizontal, and we see rainbows. So I've always seen rainbows that are like with Miss Piggy and Kermit the Frog. They were always these really beautiful shapes.
Yes.
Now rainbows come in all different sizes. They come squished up. They come on milky clouds, and I have to be this like oracle to our kids and say to them, clouds never look like that. That's not how clouds had never had that form when we were younger.
This explains why.
So we would have to explain that to them, because they, in their reality, think that that is normal.
Yes. And then that ingrains into their belief system, which is right.
But this is no different than going to the shopping centre, and we have one daughter, Gidget, and we call her the meter. So she reads frequency before and past. She starts stressing out. We take her to the shopping centre. She flips out. She's sweating. She's crying. She's shaking. Great kid. We say, Gidget, what's wrong? And she goes, they all have the same eyebrows. And I look around the shopping centre and they do. They all have the same eyebrows. And she says, why do they have all the same eyebrows? And it's scary for her because they're being groomed on what society wants them to be, and they've changed their physical appearance to be crowd pleasers. Are you seeing this formula happening?
Oh, yeah. Yes. It's funny you say this.
It's coming back to your question.
Right. And if I could just say very quickly, in a visual regard, it seems to represent itself as a interference of vectors, which eventually become curved and vortex-like. But I find it very interesting that, for example, I used this on a show I was on last night, this example of what we call money. We're told by society that imagination is completely nonsensical. But what's ironic is that the same thing we're being told that is nonsensical is also the same thing that we're using to give value to something that is completely not real. It's ironic.
It's perfect. It's perfect. That's so funny.
It's also like, for example, I've spoken to some business people who had taken some interest in, for example, looking into remote viewing for, business negotiations or whatever it is. And you say remote viewing to them or anything spiritual you ask them about, they say it's nonsense. But then you ask them how they make their best business decisions in a meeting or in a negotiation. They say, well, we go with our gut. So
like a cop, like a detective.
Right.
I had a gut feeling.
If it is of my opinion that even when it comes to military or intelligence work, data and statistics only take you so far. 99% of the time, at least from what I've seen and things like that, it comes down to you have the data in front of you, but what does your intuition tell you? Because nothing is ever certain. And then they end up just going with the people at the table or in the meeting just end up going with whatever they feel is the most, So
Absolutely.
I find that quite peculiar and ironic to your point. And it's interesting, Elsa, because it's visually, to me, I interpret it as blue visuals in my mind. And it's like a caduceus that just keeps going back and unfolding on itself.
So now your interviews are coming with the answers, so that the reason that you've asked me to meet you is so that you can hear the origin words of data. The origin words of data is dawn. It's the origin word of data is to do, is an offering. The origin word of data is ek, which is out. It's also connected to and not, which is antidote. This is the word data. See, now we get I think they've drifted off a lot in the last 6 months. But when we first started, because we've only been coming out for a year about this information, but we've been doing it for over 2.5 years with our kids and everything. So we just kept it to ourselves.
Right.
In the first 6 months coming out, they were like, "Where's your proof? Where's your photos? Where's your data?" And it's like, well, we don't need it because it's happened to us. So the only person that needs it is you. See, I don't need, when I'm sharing my experience with someone, I don't need data or proof because it's happened to me. But if you're in data information mode, there's some stuff you've still got to go through.
Right.
So if you find it irritating that there's no data, we call them the data ones. They're in data mode. They're still needing the data. The data has programmed or a buzz to it that still needs that because it's part of that. But when you work out what all these words mean, the origin meaning of them, you don't need it anymore because you go, I know what that means. Information is an act of news. It's advice. It's an idea. It's a training. It's a form. It's a shape. It's with inside. So it's an shape. A form is an outline that you fill in the blanks. Yeah, now this is where I get shivers because you fill in the blanks. So you have form or you have from, and they've just changed the middle letters. And they do this a lot with language, is they change the middle letters. So form or from is your choice. So is it your will or is it a form? So form means someone else is filling in the blanks for you.
You just described like 30 different things to me. So first off, that to me, that I interpreted a couple things. Something you described, for example, what I call, as it's been interpreted by me, as inner product Hilbert spaces in addition to loop quantum gravity. But most importantly, there's something called linguistic wave genetics that has largely been classified and or suppressed in North America, but has been openly studied and discussed in Eastern European countries, Russia, former Soviet Union nations, and all of this. This idea that there's, we could say, a resonant frequency attached to particular parameters and boundaries and forms of words themselves. And that, healing and or trauma can travel, for lack of a better description, ride such words like a surfer riding a wave.
Yeah. So another big word that comes up a lot is engineer.
Right.
And an engineer is maker of wars. It's a designer. It's an inventor. It's an engine, which is a skill. It's a war engine. It means engine. E-N, gene. In gene.
Inside the genes. Yeah.
In gene. So now you have these are big words that we are faced with all the time.
Right.
Time is tie me to a program. Tie me to a program.
If I can ask,
me.
right.
Yeah.
Is this something else so that you would
Damn.
advise people not to try and understand so much as feel?
So the only reason you're here is, and I just brought this up on another interview, is it's nothing makes sense. And this is
Right.
what's happening to us right now. The kids will say to me, "Oh, look what I just saw on, TikTok or something." And I look at them and they go, "Nothing makes sense anymore, Mum." And I'm
Right.
like, "Totally." But nothing makes sense. Nothing. So no matter makes
Right.
sense. Sense is in us. The only reason that you are unique starseed here on Gaia, being a water carrier, grounding electricity and imagining things, is to be unique with your senses, your gifts. Nothing, no matter makes sense because it's in you. Nothing makes sense. And this is like a pivotal point. Now,
Right.
this Indian god that I have brought through, she's called, they call her the golden rose gold,
Right.
gold with copper in it. We have 4 solar flares going off. And we have a blackout. You look at the solar flare, you look at the sun. It's rose gold. It's a rose flashing gold. It's like the petals. You look at the sun, how it flashes. It's like petals of energy coming. Astrology knows of these dates. The Pope gives out 4 gold roses on the Latrian Day, which is like Mother's Day, lactating milk day, in the 19th of March, which is the UK Mother's Day. We've just had Mother's Day and America's just had it. So that's an 8-week period. Now, this saying it's not connected sends me to the data beings. We still need the data. This is all connected.
Right.
The solar flares, the religion, the astrology, and what we're speaking about now is all connected. What they have no idea about is the wild cards, the wild horse, the wild dog, the black swan, which we've just gone through a whole black swan thing here. What they are worried about, the decision makers, is something that they can't worry about because they don't know, because it's in the imagination of each one of us.
It's the unexpected variable, if you will.
The wild card.
Or the wild card.
Yeah,
yes.
same thing. Yeah.
This idea that, for example, like when Roger Penrose, I really appreciate when he says that in his pursuit of studying consciousness, he cannot say what it is. He can only state what it is not. And what he says it is not is that it is not computational, which I agree with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The same thing where you walk up to your professor or your priest and you go,
boop. Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's unexpected.
Yeah, right.
You're like, what was that?
Right.
You just don't know what to do.
Right.
A wild card. I like it. Also, the intellectual troublemakers, by the way, fall into that category. And I'm all about that action.
Yeah. Yep.
And doing it with a knowledge. So you have understanding, you have compassion, you have kindness, but you're also allowing. So with the allowing, you have to let go. And this is where the humans get stuck.
Because inspiration's not calculated. Planning and methodical, this is how it has to be, and here's our 5-year plan and shit. That's totally different.
And not just that, but even the idea of letting go, as you said, Elsa, it's interesting because it's at least something that I've intuited, that the idea of, or the notion of letting go of at least material things would perhaps be not saying that it needs to be this way, but would perhaps be the first step to appreciating that, this idea of finding an appropriate balance between nature and technological inventions, but finding that sweet spot in the middle, so to speak. And that idea of truly not being materially attached to anything perhaps will allow you to feel, see, and intuit much more of the grander, we could say, apparatus at play. If that makes sense.
Totally. Because your energy is divided against your things, right? And so,
Right.
as you don't have things to divide your energy, then it's all compressed into one thing, which is you. And then you can chart like your super glowing electrical water carrier, like Elsa's talking about.
Well, that's why I like to say my life is in a
bag.
is in a knapsack.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's right over there.
Yeah,
His life is. He showed up with a bag. I was like, my guy. Yeah, this is awesome.
A handful of clothes from Walmart, a laptop, some notes, that kind of stuff. And it's interesting, Elsa. I have to say that the freedom that one expresses or feels when the detachment to material objects, it starts to show more and more that you can begin to, in my opinion, for better manipulate your reality or your local environment to what you would want to manifest or proceed in an effort on.
That's an interesting concept, because then if you think about it, if we've got a bunch of stuff, like I don't need to manifest this book because I've got it. But maybe there's another book that by the law of compensation, me having that book means I don't have access to.
And not just that, but even in the case of what we would call memory, I find, at least personally, that the calmer I get, the less I think, and the more I feel, the more I can tap this, what feels like unlimited bookshelf.
Yeah, you just pull it out of the ether, dude, because it's all there anyway.
Right.
But if it's here, you don't need it, so therefore it won't manifest in your life.
Right. And as Elsa was saying, forgive me if I interpreted incorrectly, Elsa, but the idea of data and numbers and all of that, sure, it's all fine and dandy, but it only takes you so far.
Yeah.
And then
it takes you to the point to where you know that you can't go past that with that mindset.
Right. And that would explain why so many people that are smart but data driven, that are trying to understand, UAP phenomenon or whatever it is, they're constantly running in circles because they're just focusing on the data, and they're saying this doesn't make sense. It's not going to make sense if as Elsa had so eloquently broken down the etymology of that too.
Totally.
Nothing is going to make sense unless the other element or aspect of that is introduced.
And that's what's been insane, right? Is them trying to fight them, the they, right? The air quotes they, trying to fit everybody into these boxes. It hasn't worked with the education system. We see that being completely bucked right now. It hasn't worked with the medical system, anything like this. We see politics just absolutely breaking down the workforce, corporatism, the brick and mortar places are losing control because they see how much freedom folks are getting out here, and that they're ripping themselves out of these boxes because we realized they were cardboard.
Yeah.
And they've been sprayed with water. And so now all we do is stand up and break out of them shits. And it's these molds, but the breaking out of those seems to be what the freedom is now. Well, that's what it's so empowering.
It's interesting. And forgive me, Elsa, for constantly jumping in here, but I find it quite ironic, just like with the money example, that the same thing that certain elements of the system, perhaps up until recently, have tried to suppress us or oppress us within digitally, are the same elements or tools that, as Elsa explained so well, are the wild card that is introduced. A practical example of this would be, there have been certain subreddit communities that had to be shut down because what happened was you had hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, not that they were being lazy, but they were saying, they were just questioning things in general. Why do I have to go to this particular 9 to 5 or something like this? And so what started happening was that people started exchanging with each other money so that they can help each other with no interest, scaling, building up on the payment. Just, here's some money, just pay me back when you can. And I know for a fact that certain groups had to be shut down or were shut down shortly after someone with a lot of material wealth, currency, had come in and said, I'll just help all of you. Yeah. Because if that scales up strongly enough, then there goes the whole need for, at least in this material reality, property taxes. You lose that, there's the loss of control, right? So
Elsa, do you think that's what's happening? This is what we're seeing here, is this breakout from the system. We're seeing this emergence and empowering of ourselves so that we could do a way better job.
What's interesting is that these deities or gods are coming through these mappings that I do. So just a little bit prior, April, we had Mefdet come through, which was an Egyptian goddess. And she came through. She was the lady who emerges from the sea. And she was either a mongoose or a lion. And she has had a bad rap because she brings destruction. Her destruction was for rebirth. Anything that does not serve you will now cease. And I really felt that that was appropriate for that time frame, March, April.
Right,
totally.
She came through on maps, physically came through. Our kids were like, that's a mongoose. I didn't even know what a mongoose was. And I was like,
they're adorable.
Holy shit. Yeah, so then we're having these gods come through out of maps, visualizing for us on areas that we had nothing to do with an Egyptian god. So now Mefdet's energy says the power of powers. That's what she was brought in to do. She's the power of powers to make you dissolve what you don't serves you and bring the power of power through you. Now we have this mother god connected to rose gold, connected to the sun. So the mother ship brings in the sun, literally, and rose gold. So we have gold with copper in it, which is like blood. Copper is blood. Now she's bringing in imagination, and this Indian god, their religion has gone through stuff too. So it used to be who had the power. So power used to be from wit and strength and skill. Right. That's what it used to be. Then it changed to being power could become through wealth.
Imagination.
So no. It went through this whole cycle of hereditary. So wealth was what gave you power. So they could pass it in the bloodlines. So if you inherited money, it kept the power in those families because they could pay for it. Right. So now we've had the shift. So now we're starting to realize our true core, our place of entry, our belly button, right? Where our free will is, our gut, the true heart, which is the spleen that makes the black bile, which is the yin and the yang. It's always your choice. Right. Always your choice. Come back into that power. And then imagine from there. So once you understand that it's from you, all your senses, everything you feel is your gift to this point right now. So every single feeling you have, like hearing my words, if this is completely pissing you off, then maybe you have to go and look at a few of the things I've talked about, or a few of the things that Dave said, or Brandon said, or maybe you have to deal with cat issues. I don't know, but
is it Sam?
Is it Sam? Is it Elsa? It could be anything. It could be the lighting in that room that you didn't like the lighting, but if my words are niggling you, look into it. Look at it as a gift.
What would you say? Look into why it's bothering not you specifically, but why that is a point of self-reflection.
Yes, because everyone that crosses everything that happens to you, everything that crosses your path is the show for you.
Which is pretty interesting, because in the laboratory, if you were to self-reflecting spinning mirrors induce certain interesting effects. So anyways.
Well, in a laboratory, now I've looked up that word too. That one's a very interesting word. In a laboratory, they document everything. All the probabilities, all the outcomes. Mm-hmm. Yep. So then they have the banana skin root. They have, so then they can understand, are you getting this? This is, so now apply this laboratory dissection of your life to you. What crystals are under my house? What star signs, the feng shui of the house, and apply it over all these different fields that have been in our world, and then use them as a tool to become a superior being that you are, because all that information's sitting there for you, and you carry it around in your backpack, your home, your vessel.
Right.
Now, Brandon and Mary are married, but Brandon's vessel and Mary's vessel, like Richard's vessel and my vessel, are completely unique. The tools Richard has and the tools I have. So then you have this coming together of beings. So the fact that you two are sitting in a studio together is just a gift. Everything in there is a gift. And this is why we've had the glitches on the computer screen, because all these words that are shared are going to ignite so many others.
Right. positive ripple effect.
100%. And we got the WISH unit, the World Integrity Space Harmonizer by Dr. Quantum Doug running right now. We're here. Our biofields are all up in this. Sam can't help but be all up in it.
Oh, I didn't know it was running. Nice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Always. It is always on. So it goes out with this transmission.
Sorry. It might not be, this might not be a crowd pleaser, but this might be ignition, which is light.
Right.
So by you sharing your inner light, and Brandon and myself and Sam, that then ignites others. And we've seen in this 1 year that we've come out, whether it is from us coming out, igniting others, or just what's going on, we've seen a huge shift, biggest shift, I would say. And I have mentioned this before, I was quite concerned as a mum for a long time. Very concerned. But I don't feel that way anymore. But August was the big, August, I think it was 22, it was the big confirmation for me. I just went, well, this is it. It had already pivoted, but I didn't believe it enough. But August, I felt it. And I went, wow, this is it. And I just...
And here we are.
Right.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it was a big shift. And I think I met Brandon just after that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so see, because I felt it, then what happens is my magnetics start pulling in basically lightning bolts. So I'm going to class Brandon as a lightning bolt, you as a lightning bolt. So you start then drawing it in. So then this is where the imagination comes through with the whole wealth thing. The whole thing with this Indian god Sava was that she's saying, well, you don't have to worry about money and power. You don't have to worry about that, because when you're in that imagi allowing mode, what you need just comes to you all the time, and it will come just before you need it.
Right. Exactly.
And that is what has been happening to us. And we're living proof of it, which I'll tell you some stuff after the show, because you'll...
We'll do a whole post thing here for sure.
Well, I mean,
we can share it, but I mean,
yeah, we'll do it off air.
I wanted to say that on my end, I'm pretty, at least on the recording side, I'm good.
Okay, you're happy. Okay, cool. Well, I did want to touch on some of the environmental changes that have been observed, and some of the things that, now you're trying to convince your kids. Actually, the sun was a little bit different when we were younger. Or actually, clouds didn't look like that. So what do you think is going on with that? What is your take on sort of the environmental changes? And then I kind of do want you to touch on the sun, if you don't mind, and what perhaps you feel is going on with that, if anything.
So we did a few big groundings, some big clearings. We did them so we have two daughters who are the 10th of May and the 11th of May. And we did a big ground clearing with mapping that we did. And the location was heaven. And I was like, well, I think this is going to be big. And then we heard about the blackout, the solar flares was the exact time that we did it.
Damn, Elsa.
Yeah. And the kids going, how did that? So did you do it? I said, I don't know if they did it first, the sun did it, then we did it, or we did it and the sun did it, but it's happening at the same time. And because it's happened so many times, but us, our kids are like, yeah. All right, what's for dinner? Yeah. Well, we've been in, then we had 2 hours after the period of the solar flare flashes. 2 hours after, bang, we're in solid rain up until today. Solid rain. So we've gone for walks, and the clouds, I said to the clouds, are being pushed down on us. I said, this never used to happen. The clouds getting pushed down on us. It's like a blanket. I said, this never happened. See how these clouds are shifting? Never happened. Walking around the paddocks, I'm watching the horses, and the horses don't want to eat anywhere in the open paddocks. They only want to eat under the trees. They have fully, it's a gardening term, crowned the trees, so they clean all the branches up underneath and eaten up and around like that.
Right.
They don't want to eat the open grass. Why not? Because it tastes bitter. They don't want to eat it. They want to eat all the areas that have got no fall off on them. The respiratory when you go out is pretty poor at the moment with a lot of people. You can see they have build up in their eyes, and it's just blocked, all the blocked senses. So the fallout is whatever they got in it, it's pretty severe. A lot of the time we'll see burning on the animals or the plants. So we have to acknowledge it and be aware of it and not wear it, basically. Go, okay, well, if that's that, if say it's poison. If that's poison, poison comes from earth. So there's always a counterbalance for poison. You know, if our dog gets a tick, instead of going to the vet, we take the tick off and give it to the dog, because that's the actual antidote.
To feed the tick back to the dog?
Yep.
Damn. That's hardcore.
Because when you go to the vet, the program of the vet is they know that you're in this banana peel, emotional, vulnerable state.
Right.
You just want the pet to live. I love him. He's my best friend. Da, 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 da. And then the wealth comes in, the training, the programs. I'm not saying these people are doing it in. They're probably just doing it more in a default. This is how it's done process.
Right.
But they give them, I think it's speed up their heart rate, which can kill them. They have a 50% rate of killing. Most of the time, the vet will just keep them alive and milk you.
Right.
Like cancer.
Yeah.
Which is what that day is called to the Pope. Laterian Day is called milking you.
And it's by the church.
And it's by,
Hey.
Yeah.
But they give 4 gold roses, so, they bless you while they're doing it. So.
Right.
I wonder
And
what
they
bit of the
dress up,
stolen
they-
gold they melt down to make those roses.
Yeah, and they dress up nice, you know. They wave a lot.
Yeah, they put on
So
their
they're
robes with the
groomed.
secret symbolism and all the Baphomet
But
iconography.
they're groomed, right? They're groomed.
That's right.
They
The
come
same
out.
way. Yes.
They come
the
out
same-
like a newsreader, and they make the people believe the information, the gene.
Right.
Engineering. You know what I mean? It's like they're engineering your genes from the inside.
Yeah.
Right.
Because how we do it is we do it. We engineer our own genes. And so all they have to do is plant the psychological effects, which is back to what we were talking about programming.
Information, the internal form of mating.
Yeah.
Of
Absolutely.
mating certain information structures to then create a pre-designated paradigm like a Casimir effect, where you keep everyone bouncing between the two plates essentially, but not realizing that that's not even remotely close to what actually is.
Yeah, and the baby that's made from that is fear, doubt, these cytokine storms that then make your body feel sick, and then they convince you that it is.
Well,
and
it's
tell
like
you a bunch of
when
shit.
politically, this left versus right kind of thing just reminds me of a certain frequency bouncing between two plates in a Casimir effect.
Yeah, like a Pong on Atari.
Right.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Not realizing that if the frequency were to elevate itself a little bit more, there comes a point where the plates hit a certain threshold for their height, and then you can get out of that.
Yes.
That.
Or you could just stop playing the game altogether. That's the real thing. Is I think the game makers have convinced you that this is the only game to play, and that's what we're really here to call bullshit on.
Right.
Is that
Right.
Well, I tell you what, this has been incredible. We'll probably cap it on here because it sounds like we still have a lot of stuff to talk about. So we're going to go ahead and end it for this one. But guys, thank you all so much, everybody, for listening. All the ways to find both of these incredible humans will be located down in the show notes. I can't thank y'all enough. And I have a feeling there's going to be a lot more of these. So again, thank y'all so much. This is awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Tonight in Arkansas, there's a mother tucking in her daughter and turning off the light. A business owner is burning the midnight oil. An at-home dinner date is plating up possibility. And it's all happening under one roof. How? The power of a conversation, like the one John from Integrity Solutions had with First Horizon Bank about his vision for a sustainable mixed-use building. Now it's not just words, it's life. First Horizon Bank. Let's find a way. Go to firsthorizon.com/John. First Horizon Bank, member FDIC.